Hello, welcome to Betfred's Football Show. The Premier League is back. Yes, Gary Gillespie is alongside me for the next 20 minutes or so. Look, I enjoy the big tournaments, but I do find these international breaks just not as exciting as the Premier League.
They're a bit of an interruption, aren't they, for like the real football, as we probably think. I think ideally players would want, the international football not to be a distraction that it is, but it's part and parcel like modern day football. Very much so. If you're a top player, you're playing more or less 11 months of the year, and international football comes into that as well. So it's a job that you have to do, and it's after all, it is the World Cup.
Yes, and Steve Clarke, got to give it. Great job he's doing, £600.
Fantastic. I watched them midweek against the Danes. I know Denmark were already qualified, but it didn't look like that way in the game. I thought Scotland played exceptionally well, and fingers crossed they get a good draw in the playoffs and can go on to the World Cup.
Well, let's talk about this weekend's Premier League action then, Gary. We're going to talk about Liverpool shortly, because obviously that is a game of a weekend. But the early kick-off on Saturday is Leicester versus Chelsea. Leicester start to the season being disappointing. They're 12th at the moment. Chelsea, though, 3 points clear at the top. Are they getting the credit they deserve?
Well, I think if you talk before the start of the season, I think everybody fancied Chelsea after the form last season. They are European champions after all, so they have got a little bit of credibility about them. I think if you look at Chelsea's squad, I think it's probably one of the strongest, if not the strongest, in the Premier League at this moment in time. The one thing you say, they've not really been in this position for a couple of years. I fancied them last year under Frank Lampard, but with the signings that they made, I think they are just coming to fruition at this moment in time. I think Tuchel's really benefiting from the players that Frank signed. But he's got a tune out of them, and they're playing well at this moment in time, not conceding goals. And scoring plenty as well. So I think you've got to consider them as one of the favourites. Personally, for me, it's still between Liverpool and Manchester City. I think they're the two best teams in the league at this moment in time. But sometimes, funny things happen, and it's not always the two best teams that are up there.
Well, Man City are actually the favourites of Premier League 8-11. Chelsea 5-2. Liverpool 5-1. Then West Ham are next in the batting. What a job David Moyes is doing. Let's have a quick look at the top of the table. Mentioned it earlier, Chelsea are 3 points clear of Man City. West Ham are in third. Liverpool 4 points adrift. So, obviously, you wouldn't really want a break after that West Ham defeat, would you? You'd want to get back on it, or are these professional enough now to pick themselves up?
I think they're professional enough. Ideally, it was a bad scenario for Liverpool. That game was a massive game because it gave West Ham the opportunity to go above them. And when you look at it again, Arsenal have got that opportunity to do that again with Liverpool if they get a result at Anfield. So it's a tough old game for Liverpool. They've got their injury doubts as well, which is a real concern. But I think when you look at Arsenal, they've got off to a really slow start. You watch the first game of the season, they were so second best against Brentford, it was unbelievable. But they certainly gradually picked themselves up. One thing you would say, the two defeats have come against Manchester City and Chelsea, two of the teams that are well above them, and I think obviously favourites to win the Premier League itself. So you think that Liverpool certainly have got to go into this game strong favourites, and I think if Liverpool perform how they can perform, especially at Anfield, I think they'll be a little bit too powerful for Arsenal.
We'll talk more about that game in a moment, but first of all, Leicester-Chelsea, come on, give us your prediction.
Difficult. Leicester really got off to a really slow start, conceding goals for fun, but I think they've just gradually found their way a little bit. I think they need a settled formation, a settled kind of formulation and players. I looked at Ndidi for me as being a big miss, but then I look at the games he's played. He's lost 3 games when Ndidi's played, which is a surprise for me because I think he's a key element. They've got to get the balance right between the defence and the attack. Tielemans is a big player for them. Maddison has been sadly missing for them on numerous occasions. So I think they've got to get that balance in the midfield. If they get that, I think Evans is back at the back. I think that strengthens them. It's a tough game for Chelsea, but I think Chelsea will just have enough to get the result.
And talking of Leicester, plenty of people are linking Brendan Rodgers for the Manchester United job.
Well, he's put himself in the picture for all the top jobs that come up because of what he's achieved, not just at Leicester, but obviously when he first came on the scene at Liverpool. When I say he first came on the scene at Liverpool, that's when he got a bit of notoriety. Could have really won the league at Liverpool, obviously just came short, and then went to Celtic and had a really successful period up there. And even with Leicester as well, fantastic couple of seasons down there. So I think rightly so, he should be considered for all the top jobs. I think he's a top manager, and I don't think that he would do a bad job, to be fair.
And you think Manchester United fans would take to him? Because obviously he did manage Liverpool.
Well, the connection with Liverpool was a few clubs ago. I think that, it's all about getting football and getting results, isn't it? And if you get results and you get Manchester United back up there, then I'm sure that'll melt away into the background and it won't be mentioned. But if you go in there and start struggling, then that's the first thing that gets the headlines, isn't it?
So City are the 8-11 favourites, like I mentioned. They play Everton on Sunday afternoon. I thought City were very, very impressive against Manchester United and they could have won more than 2-0.
Well, when you go that back-to-back, when you look at Liverpool kind of took their foot off the pedal at 5-0. I think there was still about 25-30 minutes to go. It could easily have been a cricket score. Manchester City are very much in the same sort of vein. 2-0, kind of like cruising through the game. You got the impression that had they wanted to step the game up a little bit, the pace up the game, they could have scored at will. And that's a sad indictment on obviously Manchester United, but I think it's just another indication how strong Manchester City really are.
And what's going on at Everton? Because it's not great for Rafa now, is it? Was it one win since the middle of September?
Yeah, he needs to get back, fit players back and fit and ready to go. Calvert-Lewin's been a big loss for him, I think,
and
up front.
A couple of months away,
and he's got another couple of months, so that's a big loss for them. Decore in the middle of the park, I think, has been a good player for them. I think he's out as well. Allen's been in and out the team as well. And they've just got to find a solid partnership defensively as well. Never been able to do that, not just under Rafa, but even the previous managers last couple of seasons. But I think one thing that you'll guarantee with Rafa, he'll be organised and he'll have his team organised, and they will be difficult to beat.
Do you fancy the home side then, Man City?
I think you've got to fancy Manchester City. I think all round, I think they're just too well. They're too strong for too many teams in the Premier League, and I think Everton being one of them.
I mentioned Liverpool at 5-1 to win the Premier League. You think it's between Man City and Liverpool. Are Liverpool as big as 5-1 because you think the bookmakers are factoring in African Nations Cup? And obviously you can have no Mo Salah, no Sadio Mane, no Keita, possibly up to 6 Premier League games, 2 FA Cup games. It's a big chunk of football.
It is a big chunk of football, and it's a big loss. I think if you take the likes of Mane and Salah out of any team, then you're taking a lot of your goals, a lot of two of your best players by any stretch. So I think it will be a loss. Whether the bookies are looking at that, I'm not 100% sure. I think they're probably looking at Liverpool's squad and thinking, out the top contenders, Chelsea, Manchester City, Liverpool's squad is probably the weakest at this moment in time. So that might come into the configuration of the fact that they're 5-1 to go on and win the league. But I still think if they can get the best 11 on a regular basis out, I think they're a match for Manchester City. And if you're a match for Manchester City, you've got to be title contenders.
And ignoring the African Nations Cup, are you just slightly worried about the size of the Liverpool squad then?
A little bit of the quality. Injury-wise, I think when you lose Wijnaldum at the beginning of the season, I think he put an awful lot of faith in Harvey Elliott, which obviously he got injured a couple of games in.
But good news, back training this week.
And he looked, he's back training. He looked absolutely sensational when he came into the first team. He got a really bright future ahead of him. But they're just a little bit bare in numbers there at this moment in time. Milner's out with a hamstring. Jordan Henderson got sent back, I think, from England training. So you look at that area of the pitch, and yes, there's a lot of bodies in there, but at this moment in time, there's a lot of injured bodies as well. So it'll be interesting to see how he manages it. Fabinho coming back from Brazil as well, a long old journey back from there. So interesting, but I still think that Liverpool, I think they've got enough strength and depth to be, as I say, title contenders.
We're waiting on news on Andy Robertson as well, a possible hamstring injury for Scotland in that great win on Monday night. Right, good record against Arsenal. It's a game of the weekend, 5:30 at Anfield. Liverpool have won the last 5 against Arsenal at Anfield. So the stats are on Liverpool's side. It's Anfield, the favourites. You'd expect Liverpool to come out on top, wouldn't you, on Saturday night? Or are Arsenal just now going in the right direction?
Well, I think Arsenal have started. Obviously, they started the season dreadfully. I think he's got a formation now that they're quite suited to. I like White and Gabriel as centre backs. I think they're forming quite a good partnership, and the balance is a lot better. I think he chopped and changed the kind of formation too many times. I think obviously just try to find his best starting 11. And at this moment in time, I think he's probably found that. Arsenal will be a threat, I think, from Liverpool's point of view, because they've got so much flair going forward. It's whether Arsenal can deal with the intensity that Liverpool play at. And in games that I've witnessed, especially at Anfield in recent seasons, that's one thing that Arsenal have failed to do. Match that intensity right from the start. And I've lost count how many times Liverpool have been maybe 2-3 goals up ahead of Arsenal, and you can't give Liverpool that sort of start. So vitally important. Start of the game, Arsenal have got to be really solid, not concede and give Liverpool anything, and then the game will develop from there, and it'll be whether Liverpool are good enough to break Arsenal down. But I still think that Liverpool just have a little bit too much for Arsenal.
Do you think Klopp will even mention that West Ham game? Because obviously that brought that long unbeaten run to an end.
Yeah, I think what he will probably say, and I think he made reference to it after the West Ham game, that run's gone now, let's start another one. And that's how you have to be. I think, if Liverpool can put another run like that together, then they're certainly going to be contenders for the Championship. So I don't think they'll dwell too much on that. It's a little bit from the media point of view or from a fan's point of view, when you look at Liverpool's last 2 games, 5 goals conceded, 2 against Brighton and 3 against obviously West Ham. That's a little bit of a concern, I would think. But he's got the armoury back there. He's got Van Dijk, he's got Matip, he's got Konate, he's got Joe Gomez. I don't know if he's back fit or still out. But you've got Phillips as well. So it's a strong area of the pitch for Liverpool. So as I say, I think if Liverpool, it's a little bit of a worry with the fact that we've conceded so many goals. But I still think that Liverpool will certainly be up there come the end of the season.
You mentioned Van Dijk. A couple of questions have been asked of him of late. He's just having a slight dip in form?
I think when you've been out for so long as he has, almost a full season, and with the injury that he's had as well, it's always a difficult injury to come back from. So I think there's always a little bit of trepidation in your mind. I don't think you play at full 100% tilt all the time. And arguably, you look at Joe Matip, and he's probably been the better of the 2 centre-backs. Konate's looked the part as well, even when he came in at Old Trafford. I think that was a big game for him to come in. Didn't look out of place. But I think Van Dijk is Van Dijk at the end of the day. He's still, for me, the best centre-back in world football. How can you leave him out? I still think that he's maybe not back to his ultimate best, but Van Dijk at his ultimate best is, he's just superior to everybody.
And a former Liverpool great has taken over at Aston Villa. Were you surprised that Steven Gerrard left Rangers to go to Villa? In
a way, I was. I think he was doing a fantastic job at Rangers. To take a football club of Rangers' stature from where they were back into the top flight, beat Celtic, and first and foremost, stop Celtic doing 10 in a row. The man will go down in folklore. Now, had he stayed, I think he had the opportunity to become a true Rangers great. It looks as if they've not played quite as well this season, but they're still top of the table, still 4 points ahead of Celtic. So I think everything in the garden up there was looking pretty rosy. But it's the lure of the Premier League. It has to be that. I think it's the old question when you ask fans who is the bigger club. Is it Rangers? Is it Aston Villa? How do you determine who's the bigger club? Is it value? Do you put a value on the club? In that respect, it probably is Aston Villa. The tradition, probably Rangers. I know Aston Villa won the European Cup, but you don't see too many supporters clubs, all over the world like that. They've got Aston Villa above the door. You have when you talk about Rangers. It's an international, global kind of team. And I think the fact that if you can manage a team like Rangers in a city like Glasgow, just like if you could manage a team like Glasgow Celtic in the city of Glasgow as well, you've got the credentials more or less, I think, to manage more or less anywhere in world football. For me, it just has to be the lure of the Premier League. And that carrot was dangled in front of him, and it was an opportunity for him to come back down and show his wares. And I think when you look at Steven Gerrard, there's certain times when certain people you just feel are destined for success, and Steven Gerrard being one of them.
He's 41 years of age, so do you admire him for taking his step?
As a Celtic supporter, yes, I do. I'm quite glad he's gone, to be quite honest with you. Listen, I don't know where he sees his future. It has to be somewhere in the back of his mind that Jurgen Klopp's maybe got 2-3 years maximum at Liverpool. Tried and trusted in SPFL is not a grounding maybe to become a Liverpool manager. Tried and trusted in the Premier League. Can he get Aston Villa the success that maybe leads on to him getting the Liverpool job? I think that's what everybody is kind of looking at, and maybe himself included.
So what's success at Villa? Because obviously we know that success at Rangers, not only did he stop at 10, he won the 55th title, first title in 10 years, went all season unbeaten in the Scottish Premier League. So what's success at Villa?
He's done fantastically well. Well, I look at it and
because they're 16th. So what's success for Villa? Top 6?
I think they've got
top
enough.
8?
I think they've got enough to not be involved in a relegation battle. You go back to Martin O'Neill's time. I think he finished 2 seasons in the running top 4, 5 or 6 or something like that. I think that's the highest they've finished certainly in the Premier League in recent years. But
were challenging when the Premier League started.
Yeah. I just think that if he can get them into the top 6, I think he's done an exceptional job. It's not a club that you associate with big money, big transfers, albeit they've spent a few bob, but you can't class Aston Villa as one of the so-called top 6, in my opinion. I know Aston Villa fans will be right down my throat with that one, but I still think that if he got them in the top 6, I think he'll have done a magnificent job.
What, and then he goes to Anfield?
That might be the scenario. That might be the scenario he's looking at, but let's wait and see.
Just a quick one on Rangers fans. Look, obviously we were delighted with him winning the title, but the time is not great, is it? Hibs in the semi-final of the League Cup and that huge game against Sparta Prague next week.
I mean, it's a must-win against Sparta Prague, isn't it? I think I was looking at the table before I came in today, and you just feel that you've got to win it. I think the last game's against Lyon. I can't see them getting too much against them. So I think it's a must-win, and then I hope and a prayer that they can get through.
2-0 win against Sparta Prague will qualify.
Yeah, well, I think that's fantastic if they can do that, but it's going to be tough, isn't it? Semi-final, obviously, as well. Listen, there's no right time, really, from a manager's point of view, to leave a football club. It does put Rangers, I think, in a little bit of a sticky situation, and probably they're looking at it, the quicker they can appoint a new manager, obviously, the better. But it's certainly, for me, it's done Celtic a massive favour. Any time that you lose your manager, there's got to be a certain amount of disruption. So I can't see it doing Rangers any good whatsoever. So
Rangers play Hibs in the Scottish League Cup. Celtic St Johnstone.
Yeah, I think Celtic will be going into that favourites. I watched them the last game against Dundee. I thought they were very, very good. Great going forward. They're one of these teams, I think, that, we'll score 4, you score 3, we'll score 4 at this moment in time. And they're very attractive to watch. So I think it should be a really good game. But I think you'd fancy both Glasgow teams to go through from the 2 ties. And let's see what happens in the big game after that. Well,
I was lucky enough to be there a couple of years ago. Incredible atmosphere. Celtic just coming out on top. Let's go back to the Premier League and look at the bottom of the table. Now, I think what's quite interesting, Gary, is obviously Norwich have got off to this awful start. They've got a new manager, but they're only 5 points adrift. I mean, if they can get a win this weekend at home to Southampton, I know it's been, very, very tough for them. They won last time out, didn't they? And then Farker left the club. It's not like completely lost for Norwich yet, is it?
No, I think if you go back maybe 2 weeks ago, you're looking at Norwich and you're thinking they're definitely down, they're doomed. But I think that victory just gives them a little bit of glimmer of hope. New manager, sometimes that does work. I think it's a good game for Dean Smith to come into. I think it's a game that they can win. Southampton are no great shakes themselves. They can be fantastic, but obviously they can have the opposite effect as well. So I think in that respect, it's a good game for them to take over, and it gives them a chance to win. And you know what? If they win the weekend, I think they're right back in contention, maybe even to stay up. And that obviously is the remit for him going there as a manager, to try and keep them in the Premier League. Can he do it? It's a tough job, it has to be said. But, you know, I think if they string a couple of results together, there's a lot of teams down there struggling, and there's a lot of teams that are not fantastically equipped as well. So I still think that they've got a slight glimmer of a chance of staying up.
Well, let's hear from a former Norwich player, Robert Earnshaw, on the appointment of Dean Smith and the Southampton game.
I think it would be welcome. I think he's proven over the last couple of years that, first of all, you know, maybe 2 years ago, there was a lot of uncertainty. Even last year, maybe a little bit of uncertainty at Premier League level. But I think over the last year, he's really shown that, you know, number one, he's a good manager. Number two, he can make his team play very well and also get results in the Premier League. So I think it'll be welcome. Norwich is a club that, first of all, they want the youth system very strong and have players in the first team from the youth system, but also they want somebody who can also make sure that the team stays in the Premier League, because this is the priority now. And Daniel Farke, I think, leaves with his head held high, and I think with respect, everybody respect the job he's done. But it was just a case of, okay, the club is bigger than Daniel Farke staying there because it hasn't looked good for 11 games. So now it's the next phase. It's the next manager to keep Norwich in the Premier League, and that's the most important thing right now. Well, I think you'll see a slightly different Norwich. Number one, I've noticed that they for example, their work rate has to get higher. Just they're not because they haven't got good players, excellent, very good players, but just the way they move as a team has to get better. So I think you're going to kind of see that a little bit more. I can see Norwich winning this one, actually. I think it's going to be tough, but I think going forward, they've definitely got some dangers. People can score goals and create. It's just, okay, has Dean Smith had enough time to just, you know, make the team a little bit more solid defensively? So, but I think Norwich will get at least a point. I believe the potential is the 3 points, which I definitely believe now that they can. Robert
Earnshaw's predicting a point. I think you think Norwich can do even better, don't you? New voice in the dressing room?
I honestly think it's a really good game for them to go into. I think Southampton are a good team to play against at this moment in time. And as I say, I wouldn't be surprised if Norwich get back-to-back victories. I'm sure they won't sack this manager after winning a game, but I think they're more than capable of doing that at this moment in time. Yeah.
What about Eddie Howe's start, Brentford at home?
Well, the expectation, the pressure is obviously on them because of like the takeover, the amount of money that they're reputedly going to be spending. So I think this will be a little bit of a low-key situation. I don't think he wants to get carried away too much. Obviously, the remit is for him, again, is to keep them in the Premier League. Now, whether he does that by splashing the cash in January, which I don't think he will, I think he'll work with the squad of players that he's got, try and get the best out of them, and see where they are in January. But I don't think there'll be a massive exodus of players and a massive influx of players come January. I just can't see that happening. It's whether he has the ability to get a tune out of the players that he's got at this moment in time. Steve Bruce couldn't do it, not on a regular basis. I think on the odd sort of time that he could do it, but that's the key for Eddie Howe at this moment in time and his coaching staff. Can he get a tune out of the playing staff that he's got at this present moment?
So can he keep him up, yes or no?
I think no, personally. And I don't think, from a Newcastle point of view, I don't think it's a bad thing if they go down to the Championship this season. And build from there, a little bit out the glare, a little bit out the spotlight, and come back a stronger and better equipped team to stay in the Premier League.
Also at 3 o'clock Saturday, Watford versus Man United. So much been written about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. He is the manager for this game. You get the impression they're going to try and get to the summer with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as well.
He's bang under pressure. I really do feel sorry for him. Every time you see him doing an interview, you just feel as if you want to go up there and cuddle and put your arm around him. I just, as I say, feel so sorry for him. it's a high-profile job. It's going to bring pressure. If you don't get results, that's the nature of the business, and especially at a club like Manchester United. I think there's much been said about Ollie. The impression I get is he's not the man for a big club like Manchester United. If you look at his credentials, Cardiff, Mulder, is that the qualifications you need to go and manage a club like Manchester United? I know he's a legend there. Personally, I think he falls a little bit short. But you just, as I say, from a personal point of view, I just wish him all the best.
Some statement. Former Liverpool player wants to go and cuddle Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Some statement, Gary. I don't think there'll be much cuddling at 4:30 on Sunday. Spurs versus Leeds.
No, that's Conte. I think if he wants a welcome to the Premier League, I know he's played obviously one game already, but against Leeds, he'll know what the Premier League is all about. If you talk about intensity, and like a lot of teams play with intensity, none more so than Leeds United. It'll be 100 miles an hour. Can he turn Spurs round? I think he's got a squad of players that really need shooken up a little bit, and I think obviously refreshed a little bit as well. And he's got to deal with the Harry Kane situation. Whether he can do that remains.
He's scoring plenty of goals, Harry Kane, albeit against Albania and San Marino.
He's obviously a man in form. He's got a bit of confidence, obviously, with these games. But Premier League-wise, he's not performed this season, has he?
Right, and finally, let's just go back to what is the game of the weekend? Liverpool versus Arsenal. I didn't get you a prediction. Come on, give us a score.
Well, as I say, I think Liverpool probably, will start really, really high intensity. If Arsenal can weather that, then they'll be very much in the game. But I don't see them doing that. I think Liverpool will be a little bit too strong for them. I can see Arsenal scoring. I think they've got enough fire and enough about them to get a goal at Anfield. So I'm going for the 3-1 Liverpool.
3-1 Liverpool. Gary, thanks for coming
Pleasure.
in. Really enjoyed spending the last half an hour here. So the Premier League is back. And please, if you're having a bet this weekend, please keep it fun and gamble responsibly.